on July 24th, 1974, ordering Republican President Richard Nixon to comply with the subpoena and surrender the tapes to investigators. That unanimous Supreme Court decision, in effect, forced the President of the United States to resign the presidency because those tapes contained evidence of Richard Nixon committing crimes in the White House. Each Supreme Court justice who joined that unanimous opinion knew that their opinion could bring an end to the Nixon presidency by supplying evidence for impeachment, which it did. Those justices knew the weight of the decision they were making. But it was, in essence, a simple decision, turning on the simple principle that no one is above the law. After the current Supreme Court agreed to hear an equally simple case, maybe even simpler, about the presidency, the Republican-controlled Supreme Court took 8 weeks just to hear oral arguments of the case. It has now been 7 weeks since those oral arguments, and the current Supreme Court still has not announced its decision on the simple question: are former presidents immune from criminal prosecution for crimes they commit while president? No one prior to Donald Trump, and possibly the current Republican Supreme Court justices, have ever thought that former presidents could not be criminally prosecuted. It's the kind of case that the Supreme Court should have been able to decide in 48 hours at most. The shame of this Republican Supreme Court is not just ethics violations, the financial corruption of Clarence Thomas, and the intemperate and unconstitutional musings of Justice Alito caught on tape recently. It is the procedural corruption that this Republican Supreme Court has brought to the case of United States of America versus Donald J. Trump, the first prosecution in history of a former president for conducting a conspiracy against the United States to overturn a presidential election. Joining us now is Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel and former chief of the criminal division, the Eastern District of New York. He is an MSNBC legal analyst and co-author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Trump Indictments. Andrew, 16 days from oral argument to decision in 1974. We're now in the 50th day and nothing.
Let me add to that timeline. It was December of last year that Jack Smith asked the Supreme Court to take the case directly, and they said no. It is 6 months since he said, let's just decide it now. And then all of the statistics as to the time that you noted. The delay is the message. That the delay is the decision, because no matter what they say at this point, it's too late for this trial in all reality to actually happen in terms of D.C. And to your segment with Nancy Pelosi, it is a way of not reminding the voters. It is not holding somebody account. It is saying, yes, it's okay to whitewash because the delay has happened already. And so this is one where Liz Cheney remarked that the courts basically have held up when she talked about the 60 or so courts that said, you know what, the election was not stolen. The lower courts, by and large, have held up. You cannot say the same thing about the Supreme Court. It is totally shameful what they are doing.
So even if tomorrow, as they could announce tomorrow or next week, come out with an incredibly simple and possibly even unanimous or high majority opinion saying that, no, there's absolutely no validity to the Trump claim at all, just none, just like the Nixon decision, no validity whatsoever to the former president's position. Your point is, whoever managed to delay it this long, whether that be Alito, Thomas, Roberts, whoever managed to create this delay, has succeeded in the intent of the delay, which is no trial before this election. That if we can't protect Donald Trump from the actual Constitution, if we can't change the Constitution for him, we can change his court date. We do have that power. And when you listen to those Alito tapes, you're listening to a man who, to me, seems absolutely capable of thinking that way.
Oh, absolutely. You could end up with a decision where they put in lots of flowery language about no man is above the law, but in fact, this man is. Because the judge on the case, the district judge, has said that she will give about 80 days because that's how long the stay was before the trial was intended. So even if there's a decision tomorrow, the trial in all reality is unlikely to start for 80 more days. And at that point, you can imagine a lot of arguments and appellate briefing on the issue of, is it appropriate when somebody is a nominee for president to have a trial and to have that going on during the very last months of a campaign. So, I mean, that is, to me, it is so hard not to view this as intentional because, as you point out, the court has not just in the Nixon case, but it has repeatedly acted faster, and it can act faster. So, to me, the delay is clearly intentional. It is so undermining when you have the Supreme Court of the United States undermining the rule of law. I mean, just think about that. This is the highest court in the land, and it is not living up to its oaths of office in the way that many, many district judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats, not Trump, have actually honored their oaths of office.
This is worse than all of the money Clarence Thomas has taken for everything He's taken money for. We could go on and on. Andrew Weissmann, thank you very much for joining us tonight.